Of the Infrastructure Services Committee of Thursday, October 14th, 2021, and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is on the territories of the Seashell and Squamish First Nations. We have an agenda before us. There is one addition to the agenda. In between items 6 and 7, we'll call it 6.5, is a verbal update from staff on garbage curbside pickup. Is there anything else that any directors would like to see reordered? Can I see a motion to adopt the amended agenda? That's seconded. Thank you. All in favor? That passes. We have an agenda. Next, I would entertain a motion to receive all reports and communications. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. All right. First thing, and the most important thing, is our water supply update. Over to GM Rosenboom.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to share my screen to this presentation. And I think it all works. Awesome, thank you. The water supply update, it's interesting to provide a water supply update that talks about water supply and drought when there is a rainfall warning out for the next couple of days for 150 millimeters. It's just an interesting change of events from that perspective. But there we go. So the weather forecast at the end of August that we based our decisions on at that time and towards early weeks of September was that September would be above normal and there would be a substantial chance that October would be above normal temperatures as well. However, that did not happen. This is the temperature at the airport, and all the orange lines are above the average of the last 10 years. And you can see that almost during the entire summer and a significant amount of the spring, we were above average. You can clearly see the heat dome just before the 1st of July. And you can see that early September, yes, we were above the average temperatures, but afterwards we were lower than the average temperatures. And that's still the case. So you can really see a change in weather around about mid-September. And in terms of precipitation, the weather forecast for September was that there would be no anomalies. It would be pretty normal in the second half of September in terms of the rain events. And look at the normal, which is about 76 millimeters in rain for the entire month of September. The actual, we received about 120, 130, so well above average. And most of that rain occurred in the last 2 weeks of September, especially the rain event around the 20th, where we had about 43 millimeters of rain at the airport and over close to 60, 70 millimeters of rain at the lakes. Really did it in terms of water supply. So the outlook was for warmer weather for September. The reality was, yes, that was the case for the first 2 weeks, but afterwards it was wet and dry, which was beneficial from water supply perspective, of course. But this graph also shows that over the entire year until to date, it still can be considered a dry year if you compare it to, for example, last year, 2020, which was a way more wetter year than this year. So how did we ended up with the water supply stages, water conservation stages? Stage 4 was declared for Eastbourne in July 21st and for Chapman water system at August 10th. And the Chapman system returned to stage 1 on September 20. And all the systems, as per the bylaw, refer to no stage, no water conservation stage regulations in place as of September 30. So that's why it's an NA here, because it's automatically that they return to no water restrictions at all at the end of September. This was the total water use. We've shown this graph before, and you can see that during the stage 4 situation, the demand decreased, and from September onwards, it hovered about or just below 10,000 cubic meters a day, which is about the winter demand. So that's what we're hoping to reach for in stage 4, and that was indeed the case thanks to the support of the community and a little bit of the weather. So as part of the Emergency Operations Center activations, we initiated several measures. There is a report forthcoming on this same committee agenda about the emergency siphon system at Edwards Lake, and how to advance that project. We escalated 15 large leaks to see if we can get them resolved by issuing a shut-off notice, and 12 are resolved so far and 3 are pending, but we are hopeful that they will be resolved shortly as well. We sent a significant amount of letters to above average properties that were using well above the average amount of water, and we received emergency water supply from the town of Gibsons. So where's the water coming from this summer? Since these are the dates since July 5th, which is the date stage 2 was called, because prior to that, the water was flowing over the weir. So this is really from the moment that stage 2 was called, and we were not getting water flowing over the weir, and we were tapping into our storage reservoirs. The vast majority, of course, from Chapman Lake, a significant amount from Edwards Lake, and through the siphon system at Chapman Lake combined. You can see that Chesterwell and Grey Creek contributed a substantial amount as well, and the town of Gibsons, for the 20 days, we received water from them. That amount is listed here as well. So during the entire summer, we confirmed 140 violations of the water conservation regulations. Most of them, of course, in the Chapman system, as expected, because it also has the most stringent water conservation restrictions in place. Just over 40% of those were identified through staff patrols, and the vast other majority by phone and email complaints from residents. In terms of warnings and actual issuance of warnings and fines, this year we issued 8 fines, 6 for non-compliances with sprinkling restrictions, and 3 for pressure washing when it was not allowed. And the total amount of fines was significantly higher than in any of the previous years, while the amount of warnings was not. So I think this really speaks to the fact that we were out there more, we were able to confirm non-compliances more than we were used to do in previous years. In terms of outreach, at the start of this, in this spring, we had just over 200 subscriptions to our monthly water use update program. We're currently over 400, so that's a significant increase. So if residents still want to, we still encourage residents to subscribe to this program, which allows them to receive an email every month with their water use for the month and how it compares to previous years and the general average of the community. They can subscribe to that at scrd.ca/water, And there's also more recently a water leak troubleshooting page added to that site. This fall, there will be several Let's Talk Water meetings organized where we provide updates to the community on all our water supply expansion and conservation initiatives. And that will, of course, also allow for discussions with the community on those. I now want to make a switch from the drought response this summer to a brief update on 2 water supply expansion projects. One is the Church Road Well development project, and I'm happy to inform the board that the consultation with the Squamish Nation on this project has been concluded late September, and that all comments and requests they provided can be addressed as a part of the scope of this project. And currently there are no outstanding concerns in terms of the consultation with the Squamish Nation. And staff and with support of our consultant are finalizing the last details on the water license that I expect to be issued in the upcoming weeks by the Ministry of Landward. And given the above 2 items, we feel confident that we can issue the tender for the construction phase of the Church Road Well field project within the upcoming days. So that's good news. We anticipate that the tender and the procurement process will take about 2 months to complete. So we hope to be able to complete that in December. That would, if everything aligns, might allow for construction to start in January with an 8 months anticipated construction timeline. The tender package we currently have prepared allows for a financial incentive if there's an early completion of the project. So that there's a carrot there for the contractors to be creative to see if they can get the project completed within the earlier than the 8 months than we are predicting it is. We also know that there is some requests in the community or some discussions in the community about the Dusty Well field site. This well was drilled in 2018, and at that time it was confirmed that it is indeed has a very substantial sustainable yield. It can produce a lot of water. 64 liters a second were estimated at that time. The development costs at that time were anticipated to be in the order of magnitude of $2 million. However, given the increased cost, I would say that those would need to be reconfirmed at this point in time because they will be higher than that. The graph below really shows the location. Can you see my pointer? Yes, you can see my pointer. This is where the test well is located, and this is the proximity of the area where a future production well would be located as well, or at least that was considered. And the red line indicates the area where the water that a well at this location would produce would come from. And you can see that that area overlaps substantially with the current gravel mining operations, touches a sliver of on our landfill, overlaps with Chapman Creek, and overlaps with the 2 areas that are designated as gravel lands and that are currently last year transferred from the province to the Sechelt Nation in terms of ownership, and they are destined to be gravel extraction is planned for those areas as well in upcoming decades. So in terms of the considerations for potentially developing this site as a production well, because of the overlap in Chapman Creek, there's a potential that if a well would be produced would be developed at this location, water would actually be drawn from Chapman Creek which would then impact our environmental flow need requirement, and as such, we would need to release more water from Edgeworth to Chapman Lake to augment that loss to the increased loss to the aquifer. It's very likely that the aquifer in the area is less recharged and will continue to be recharged at a lower rate due to the gravel extraction. The entire area is changed in terms of geohydrology due to the gravel extraction, and that's a process that is continuing for the decades to come in the area. And there is a potential. It's low. It is low, but it is there, that there is contamination from industrial activities as part of the gravel extraction and or our own landfill, the Seashield landfill. In terms of procedural considerations, as part of the foundation agreement with Seashield Nation and the province signed in 2018, there is a shared decision-making on all Water Sustainability Act applications within the area. So any water license in this area would require approval by the ministry, by the Flynn Ward, as well as by the Seashield Nation. And to date, my conversations with Seashield Nation have not resulted in them being supportive of this project being developed. There is also a substantial provincial backlog in terms of their processing of applications. It's currently far over 2 years, more towards 3, for water license applications. And in terms of the staffing availability to actually work on this project, it will, of course, we are maxed out. So prioritizing this project would have an impact on other water supply and conservation efforts. And the required budget and funding is to be determined. Having said that, I'm more than able to answer any questions about this or any other part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, GM Rosenboom. And on behalf of your extremely relieved board, and in view of all the effort that's gone into the Church Road project, not to mention the tremendous amount of work that was required to get us through this year's water emergency, I would like to propose a round of applause for our staff. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, juggling devices. Director Seegers, you're first.
Thank you. A question about the presentation. So you have this presentation here. I know we have a delegation coming this afternoon. Will you be able to present those 2 slides this afternoon to our delegation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Ties.
Thank you. Yeah, 2 questions. I'll start with the first one, just in order of how it was presented. The 15 properties and the leaks that will have been resolved, I guess of the 12, do we have a number as to how much water we've saved from those 12 properties?
I think the total amount of the 15 was, from top of my head, over 400,000 liters a day. So the 3 outstanding 2 of those are substantial in amount. So I think it will be at least 250,000 cubics a day. This is my estimate from top of my head, but substantial.
Thank you. Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously this is great news about the Church Road well field. I've got one question that I don't recall seeing an answer, and I haven't dug deep enough to know. So if you don't have an answer for me right now, that's okay. We can follow up later. But the Dusty Road well field, given the potential for uphill contamination and things that were in play even back in 2018 in terms of the foundation agreement and what have you, why was that well even drilled in the first place? Do we know, or do we remember? Thank you.
That's a good question. I think the primary reason is that we are expecting we're expecting it to be a high yield area. The exact decision on why it was drilled at that time, I think even happened when I just was about to arrive, so I don't know exactly what went into that. But from a desktop study that was completed in 2017, this was identified as a high yield area. And I think at that time, nobody really fully understood the complexity of the area, especially the linkage with the Chapman Creek, for example, was not considered at that time.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Eastbourne is the interest. So if you could just expand on the status of the Eastbourne system right now, if you could. Thank you.
Thank you. Eastbourne is, as I think you will know, a system that is very, very, very dependent on rainfall. So in the summer, during stage 4, they go back to zone filling, where every residence receives a certain amount of water based on the availability at that point in time. And when it started raining in mid-September, there's not an immediate response in terms of the aquifer recharging. So it will take a couple of weeks before that aquifer is actually responding to the amount of rainfall. So when it started raining mid-September, the Chapman system immediately responded, and it took some weeks before the aquifer actually also started to recharge in Eastbourne. And as a result, we are more or less let stage 4 elapse there towards the end of the month. And by the end of the month, we checked in with the operators and see how the aquifer was recharging, and they confirmed that the levels were going up. And at that time, they were fine with just moving back to, they stopped the zone filling and moved back to regular operations for the winter season. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Ties.
Thank you. Yeah, the second question I had was considering all the impacts or all the things happening above the Dusty Road well and it being an unconfined aquifer, how likely would it even be that even if we did apply for the license, that the province would give us a water license on that? I don't know if you can speak for the province, I'm sure, but you have some experience in that department, I believe, so.
Thank you for the reminder. Given the concerns, they might still be willing to issue a license, but it will be with a lot of conditions. And as indicated before, it still requires the shared decision-making process with the Sechelt Nation. So if they were to consider issuing a license for this, and the Sechelt Nation would do it as well, I think the likelihood of that being the case is low. And I think that our success rate will be low, and the amount of effort that we need to put in to do all kind of additional assessments, monitoring, etc., to provide additional technical information. I think the effort that we need to put in will be way higher than we had to put in for Church Road, given the complexity of the situation.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in with a question now. Since you're representing the province right now, there's been a lot of agitation on Facebook lately that we should go back to the province and have them reverse their decision about taking Chapman Lake out of Tetrahedron Provincial Park. Would you care to speculate on our odds of succeeding in such a venture?
Thank you for putting me on the spot there. What I can say is that ultimately, it's a decision. There were multiple steps required, and the first step was amendment to the park use, to the park boundary, to allow for the project to succeed. That was a decision by the Minister of Environment at that time, and Minister Heyman is still in that same position. That was only the first step. Second step was still the issuance of the water license itself, and potentially even a park use and the water license itself. I have no clue where that's if that would be a successful undertaking as well. More likely, but given that there is no change in the political political leadership on the PC Park side, I'm currently not confident that it's very likely that a different outcome could be obtained by pursuing that project again.
Thank you very much. Director Seegers.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you can give us an update on the Eastbourne projects for increasing water access. I think we were looking at putting additional wells or something there. Where are we at with that?
Thank you very much for the question. This summer, we really focus on moving the Langdale project forward and the Church Road project forward, and the work on the Eastbourne project is in the planning stage. So it's in a very early stage. So we hope to advance that over the winter season significantly, and it would include negotiations with a private well owner to share the private well that's already being drilled on that property. And if that would be not successful, then we would start drilling our own test wells on Eastbourne. But initially, the project would focus on collaborating with the well owner to see if we can come to an agreement on the shared use of his well. Thank you.
So I guess I'm wondering about timing, given they have to deal with stage 4 every year. Are we potentially looking at having something in place to relieve that this coming year, or it will depend on how those conversations go?
Thank you for the question. At this point in time, I can't speculate on if it's possible to get something in place there by next summer. If possible, staff will definitely pursue that. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions in the queue. So if we are done here, I think it is time to move on to item 3, the 2021 Drought Response and Emergency Operations Center update. And over again to GM Rosenboom.
Thank you very much, Chair McMahon. This report provides an overview of some of the activities undertaken by the Emergency Operations Center for the 2021 Drought Response Plan. It provides an update on the measures taken and some considerations to next steps. And one of the next steps that is considered is to continue the work on an emergency supply system at Edwards Lake. Not to actually construct the project, but to continue the development to such a state that if ever required in case of an actual emergency, it would be ready to be deployed, and all the permits would be could be in place so that we can actually move forward there in an expedient time frame. And so far, we've received positive feedback on that proposal as well from the regulators. So things are looking good from that perspective. However, that would require an amendment to how the project is funded, because it's not currently was proposed to be funded from capital reserves. However, because the project would not result in actual the construction itself of a new siphon system, only the purchasing of the materials and all the assessments required for the permits, it would need to be funded from operating reserves instead. Staff would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Director Seegers.
Thank you. If the project moves forward at some point to actually being in operation, can those costs be moved from operating to capital?
That's a question that I think is very appropriate to be answered by our CFO, who's currently in the gallery. So question to IT, can you move Tina to the meeting?
Promote it now.
Yep. Were you able to hear the answer or not?
I heard the question.
Yeah, sorry, that was.
Yes, I heard the question and prepared to provide an answer. We would have to see the nature of the deployment. Historically, it has been treated as operational because it is temporary in nature. So that is how the Chapman has been treated as well, because it's not a fixed asset and it's not there in perpetuity. It's only there for operating purposes. So it really depends on the nature of the deployment. And of course, we'd review it with our auditors as well.
Thank you very much, CFO. I see Director Hiltz has a hand up.
Yes. Thanks, Chair. I'm interested in the phrase, the long-term emergency measure. And I'm thinking of the Chapman siphon. So is the idea to have both of these as long-term emergency measures where the siphon in Chapman could remain in place for a longer period of time, or would you have to remove it and then redeploy it? Got any comments on that?
Thank you for the question. The siphon system at Edwards, just like Chapman, requires both a park use permit as well as water license. And currently, the condition of our park use permit is that at the end of the term of that temporary permit, 2 years, every 2 years, there is a condition that we need to decommission it. However, until now, because of the extension, it's still in place. However, I can totally see that at some point we might need to demobilize that. And if that's the case, then the materials will be brought to Dakota Ridge, where the materials for Edwards Lake are located as well.
Thank you very much. It seems very prudent to me to have a backup plan in case something should go severely wrong with the dam at Chapman Lake. So I see Director Seegers has a hand up.
Thank you. We have a number of recommendations on page 1. I will move those recommendations.
Thank you. I see a seconder. Is there any further discussion on these recommendations? Seeing none, I'm calling the question. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much. A little more peace of mind, even though it's costing a bit of money. Next up, we have the Drought Response Plan 2021 summary. And that's over to Ms. Edbrook, I believe.
No, I think it's Callahan, but IT, can you promote Jen to the meeting? Thank you.
Promote it now.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the board on the implementation of the Drought Response Plan in 2021. The Drought Response Plan provides direction for the timely and responsive management of water supply systems during times of supply challenges and seasonal drought. 2021 proved to be a challenging year for the SCRD water operators and the public. Extended drought conditions and above average temperatures impacted all water systems. These conditions increased water demand and increased drawdown of the seasonal water that's stored in Chapman and Edwards Lakes. Chapman and Eastbourne water systems both reached stage 4 water supply conditions and regulations, a ban on all outdoor water use, and South Pender Harbor entered stage 2 regulations for the first time. Staff communicated water conservation regulations and conditions to the public through print, online, radio advertising, email notifications, direct contact with community associations and business operators, as well as a number of one-on-one interactions with the public. Staff were very active in the community and followed up on 140 instances of non-compliance to regulations. Thank you for your time, and staff welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. It was indeed an event-packed summer. Do I see any questions? Yes. Director Hiltz, you're first up.
First, thanks for the report. The report has lots of good statistics which are going to help answer questions. So thank you for that. The question that I have is on page 7. It was the commercial operations at the Langdale filling station. Just wondering how that operation went, and if there's something that could be learned for the future as a future perhaps permanent or emergency station at this place for commercial filling, which isn't on the coast.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It was a quiet uptake this stage 4. We had, I think, one operator that signed up for use. So looking at the advertisement of that and how we're connecting with operators is probably a useful tool moving forward.
Maybe in addition to that, the station will still require the staff member to go to the site, open a valve, because it's just a hydrant. So yes, we'll definitely see how we can advance the use of that further if in future, in the instance that we would hit a stage 4 in the future again. However, I have also to say that once the Langdale well project is online, of course the Langdale project is connected to the Chapman system, and there will be no benefit of having the station there at all anymore.
Follow-up for me? I guess I'm thinking of the future where there's people down in other areas which are not serviced by water, which might be interested in having a tanker truck delivered to them. I'm even thinking of like Eastbourne Island or even Gambier Island to be able to truck water over there perhaps as a future emergency measure that right now I don't think we're set up, and Gambier and Keats are both vulnerable in terms of winter or summer droughts. So that's kind of outside of the piped areas is kind of where I'm thinking of the emergency perhaps, and the uptake of commercial deliveries. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Langdale is, in all cases, our go-to, especially for the southern area, currently our go-to water system if there's a need to provide water to other systems, because it has that access capacity.
Thank you very much. Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. So as we look forward to 2022, I'm thinking to some of the comments that we heard from our community regarding water conservation regulations and messaging around that. I'm wondering about starting our regulations earlier, which is one of the comments that we had heard, rather than going into water conservation regulations beginning May 1st, maybe starting them April 1st as a potential, as well as looking at extending beyond September 30th. Because I know we have in the past, we've had years where we've been in stage 3 into October. This year, if we hadn't had those rains in September, we would have been looking at potentially extending those regulation timelines. So just as we're looking into 2022, looking at bringing the water conservation regulations into a longer period of time over the year rather than that shorter time, even though I know we don't go into stage 2 until the water stops going over the weir. However, it's the messaging to the community of being aware of the regulations earlier rather than later.
Thank you. I think it's definitely something that we'll consider together with some other items that we will consider in upcoming months for implementation next year. Currently, the bylaw allows for stage 1 to be implemented even before May 1st and water conservation regulations to be in place after September 30. But I can see that a potential widening of the term might be beneficial. So we'll definitely look at that and provide recommendations to the board on that in the spring or winter season. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Ties.
Thank you. Just some feedback that I received was that I think that the public doesn't really bother checking on what the difference between the stages is until you probably get to stage 3. I think stage 1 and 2 kind of get thrown into one. I don't think there's a significant enough difference. So I'm wondering if we can kind of start on stage 2 and then go all the way to stage 3 and 4. So just skipping stage 1 altogether and making it a little bit simpler. That's one thing. And then the other thing is the registered farm users, and either I think we build in that 2-week leniency for them to figure out their stuff once we've called stage 4, or we give them a 2-week heads up that for stage 4 will be called on this and this date unless there is a significant rain event. So that they can figure out their stuff before stage 4 is called. So that's something that we might want to consider in the future.
Thank you. I don't see anyone from staff, so Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question on page 7, and it's about the Emergency Operations Center, and it was a curiosity question. It says, initiate advanced planning activities with other agencies, including Vancouver Coastal Health and Fire Departments. I was kind of curious what kind of activities those were. I couldn't figure that one out.
Thank you. We, as part of the EOC, one of the additional benefits of activating an EOC is that it allows for more easier and direct communication with other agencies to ensure that they're as well prepared for the situation that the EOC is activated for. In this case, we connected with the fire departments as well as with Vancouver Coastal Health, as well as for example, the district sea shield staff to ensure that they have their emergency response plans reviewed, dusted off in case there would be indeed a water supply shortage and we would not be able to provide adequate water to their facilities.
Thank you. Director Seegers.
Thank you. First off, I want to commend the infrastructure department and communications for the work they did this year to keep the community apprised. There was a huge effort, and while yes, there were some people who didn't kind of come on board or recognize things were happening till stage 3, there was a lot of information out there, and a lot of the misinformation, I guess, was addressed. So I want to thank you for that huge effort. It was really good. I did notice on page 12, it mentions that the recommendations for the drought response plan will come forward in spring 2022. And I'm wondering about timing, given that we're dealing with, again, people who are planting crops prior to that or planning on planting crops prior to that. And also then there's the piece about the Church Road well. So I want to, I commend the effort that's been done, but I'm just wanting to say there's going to be a huge need for ongoing communication around that and to keep them apprised too, because that's their livelihood as well, right? But, so I'm wondering about the timing of the drought response plan inside of that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, we're already starting this work. We're developing bylaw proposals and meeting internally and working with staff, including operations and communications, to let them know what our considerations are. I think we'll have to determine the timing and what type of outreach we want to do to the community, depending on the type of potential amendments that we consider. And then we'll want to give advance notice to anyone that any potential amendments would impact.
I'm just going to follow up on that because I have quite a few farmers. So I'm guessing that as a result of what happened this summer, we are building a better communications database with food growers. And so is there a special plan just for them, or is it just rolled into the public plan?
There'll definitely be sector-specific communications that need to happen with regulations that impact certain groups more so than others. So yes, to definitely communicating with farmers directly.
Thank you very much. Director Seegers?
One more question with regards to the Langdale well. Given that we could have the potential for trucking for various uses, is there a water meter on that well? Can we measure how much water different trucking companies, for example, are taking? Or is that part of what's going to be added as we do the work down there?
Thank you for the question. Currently, if a commercial operator would take water, it would from a hydrant, and so it would just be the volume, recording the volume of the tanker truck that's there. And just one follow-up on an earlier remark from Director Thijs in terms of farm use and the 2-week window. That's definitely something that we're going to look into in terms of how can we learn from this year and how can we advance that for next year. Thank you.
And then the other part about the upgrades to Langdale, are we looking at if we have a facility there eventually with the ability to fill tanker trucks, will we have a meter on that so that we can actually record it and potentially charge for that?
I can't confirm that at this point in time, but that's we will definitely take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no further hands in the queue. So I believe it is time to move to item 5, summary of wastewater feasibility study. Over to Mr. Doyle, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform the board on the results of a series of feasibility studies that were done over the last year for several wastewater systems. If there are any questions about the contents of the report, staff are happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there questions on the wastewater facilities, which are in areas F and B? Director Lee.
Thank you. Is there a plan to communicate with the users on the results of this? Or are we going to wait until it's budget time to talk to them?
At this time, thank you for the question, Chair. At this time, the results of the feasibility studies will be wrapped into the update for the capital planning, and they'll be summarized there. And ongoing consultations on the capital planning will continue to happen with the various wastewater systems.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to follow up on the communications ideas. Is it going to be where members of the system or participants in the system need to seek out, or are we going to, what's the method that they will be able to kind of find this easily, I suppose? Will it be sent to them, or is there a place where they will be easily able to find it? So just, I think following up on Director Lee's question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We'll work with communication to ensure that this report is easily accessible on the individual pages of the different wastewater facilities on our website. Thank you.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Considering the wealth of data and the long-term impacts, and actually the accuracy and the completeness of the data, it gives a very good view forward for these two plants. I really believe we should be working with them on an ongoing basis so they fully understand and there isn't big surprises. I don't know how we make that happen. I'm willing to organize the meetings, but I would need some technical assistance to it. So I think it's important not just for the two ones that we've done right now, well, actually for the three that we've done, but ongoing, because each one of these guys are little service areas, and so everything is unique to them, and so it's extremely hard to understand the financial impacts, and they are undoubtedly going to ask questions, and I don't think surprises are good things. So when we have this kind of actually good news, we fully understand. I think we need to share with the users of those plants. So is there an opportunity? Will we be able to make an opportunity for that to happen if those users so desire, is my question.
Thank you for the question, Director, through the Chair. We'll definitely take a look at that, but I think there's maybe an opportunity there as part of the budget process engagement that we're going to undertake, because for some of these facilities, budget proposals might come forward this year, and for others might be next year. So I think there might be opportunities there to focus our engagement specifically on what we're proposing for this year and provide an outlook for future years. But staff will work with asset management and infrastructure staff will work with communication to see what's possible there, because I agree with you in the sense that more information is better.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. I'm following up on page 20. It's on the Langdale system, the long-term agreement between SCRD and the YMCA and the decisions around that. So the timing of it, is it anticipated to be a budget proposal for this year, or I'm just wondering about the timing of the decision? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. There is a budget proposal coming forward for the development of the legal agreement, including additional surveys, etc., that are required, as well as for an actual renovation of the Langdale system. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I was very pleased to see that this work was done by the use of grants. And I was wondering if you could comment on the likelihood of us getting grants to complete this detailed work for the rest of those plants. Is that something that could be happening next year, or how would we go forward with this?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Well, we continue to see grant opportunities for this work, and like you addressed there, because the grants were available, we took advantage of the prioritized systems in order. We'll continue where we can find grants to offset the cost for this work, as these were the most imminent systems as far as the age of them and the need for replacement. We'll address them in that order. So we'll
The only thing I can add to that is that we applied for grant funding to undertake this work for several more grants, several more projects, wastewater facilities, and we only received grant funding for 2 of them. I think we applied for 7. So I think that's an indicator, yes, we continue to apply, but the success rate might not be 100%. Thank you.
I just wanted to confirm that I was extremely pleased with the work that was done here and how thorough it was, and I'd like to thank staff for that. It really provides clarity for those plants, so thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have item 6.5, seeing no further hands in the queue. And I think we'll go to 6.5, and then we may, if directors want, take a short break after that one. So, 6? We haven't done 6. I beg your pardon. We'll do 6, then we'll do 6.5, and then maybe you'll get a break. So, the RFP for asphalt works for Henry and Chester Road water main replacement.
Thank you, Committee Chair McMahon. Presented for your review and action is a staff report summarizing the status of the Chester and Henry Road water main replacement projects and a construction contract for the repaving of those sections of Chester and Henry roads that are required to be repaved as a result of the current waterline installation project. These waterline projects are currently underway per a previous contract awards for both the pipe procurement and equipment services for the waterline installations. The Henry Road waterline is an extension of the previously completed waterline project completed from a couple of years ago. And this work will both upsize and extend the waterline up on Henry Road from Reed Road intersection to the Henry Road Reservoir. In order to complete these projects and provide a smooth riding surface to both vehicular and pedestrian travel, asphalt services is required to be completed. In accordance with the SCRD purchasing requirements, one compliant bid was submitted from BA Blacktop in the amount of $391,000. Staff's recommendation to the committee is to recommend award of the BA Blacktop paving contract in the amount not to exceed $241,789 excluding taxes. Included in this amount is a 25% contingency to provide payment to the contractor should additional asphalt paving be required as part of this work. Staff will be more than happy to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. And folks in Area E are very happy to see that water main on Chester getting fixed as it was blowing up so frequently. Director Seegers.
Thank you. A question of staff first, and then I'll make the recommendation. Mr. Mazurek, you indicated a different number than what's in the recommendation, and I don't know if you just misspoke that, as you said 798, I believe.
That may have been a mistake. It's
It says 241,738.
241, yes.
Okay.
The recommendation was, let me see, 241,738.38 is the recommendation.
Thank you. Okay. I'll move the recommendations on page 127.
And do I see a seconder? Yes, I do. Thank you. No further hands are up. I'm calling the question. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Now, the long-awaited item 6.5, which is a verbal update on the adventures of garbage pickup in the rural areas and Sechelt.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide a verbal update. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit to only restrict it to the SRD and not to this Sechelt, and to change garbage collection to curbside collection because it's garbage and green waste. So I'm going to share my screen because I prepared 2 slides for you to ease the conversation. So I think we all know that there has been some significant service disruptions over the summer, primarily since mid-July. And they were caused by 2 drivers. One is the shortage of drivers by Waste Management, our service provider, since mid-July. They received several resignations and were certainly faced with a significant shortage in drivers within a several weeks time frame. Since they've hired several new drivers, relocated drivers from other services they provide. So the driver shortage is less than what it used to be. And actually, the driver shortage is not something that is only, we're not alone on the coast with having difficulties with finding drivers. It's actually more an industry-wide problem in Canada and America, and not only restricted to waste management operations. The second cause is that in July, there was a schedule change implemented where some residents moved from, had a different schedule in when their garbage was going to be picked up, 1 week later than what they're used to. And Waste Management confirmed that the implementation of that schedule change was inadequate. That resulted in a lot of confusion amongst residents. Garbage bins were picked up when no garbage bins were actually on the street, because everybody was expecting them to be picked up the week prior or the week after or on another day. It was quite an interesting circumstance. So where are we at right now? I think there is a significant reduction in the need for recovery pickups for entire or major parts of routes. I think things have significantly increased. However, there's still missed pickups, primarily side streets, dead ends, and some stretches of road that are still being missed, primarily due to the fact that there are new drivers and they don't know the coast. And usually they're not from the coast. The changes in the collection schedule that occurred in July, August, we don't see that impact any longer. And I think the fact that Waste Management decided themselves to distribute a new schedule calendar to deliberate mail out to all residents really helped resolve that issue and the confusion around the scheduling. Staff over the summer were spending significant amount of time, especially the solid waste staff, on fielding calls, working with residents and working with Waste Management in response to the issues. At peak time, it was about 2.5 FTE, 3 FTE a week, that were just full-time working on the phone and with residents and Waste Management. And luckily, that's no longer the case. So there were, staff received also questions about the terms of the contract. For garbage collection, the contract was issued in 2019 and the current term ends in 2024. And for the green bin, the organics program, the food waste program, it was only initiated in 2020, so it ends in 2025. And both contracts have an option to extend it at that time. We also received a question about what are the costs for collection per pickup. For both services, it's between $1.50 and $2 per resident. That is per collection. That's about what the cost is. So, next steps, we're on an ongoing basis provide support to residents in terms of if they have missed pickup, and continue to work with waste management to resolve any of the ongoing service disruptions in an expedited manner. We are having ongoing discussions with waste management on financial compensation with respect to the missed pickups, as well as the additional staff resources the SRD needed to provide to support our residents and waste management. And towards the end of the year, we'll do a financial assessment of where we are with the 355 function, which is the refuge collection function, which with respect to the additional cost we have incurred as a result of the circumstances and any financial compensation by waste management. And if there happened to be a surplus, it would go into the reserves of this particular function to offset future costs for the curbside, for any of the curbside collection services the SRD is providing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Director Pratt with her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. So first off, thank you. I mean, the infrastructure staff has been a little inundated this summer between water and solid waste management. So thank you again for all of the work and arrows that have been directed. So I think probably the biggest question I have was, what's the best way forward if residents are still being missed? Should they be contacting the SCRD or trying to go through the waste management phone system, because that has been very, very challenging for residents to do and to manage going through?
Thank you very much for the question. Staff are in ongoing conversations with waste management on how to, and provide them with advice and feedback on how to improve the functioning of their call center in their ability to respond to questions from residents. I've had it myself where I reached out to a call center and received the feedback that was not really helpful. So it's an issue that we're aware of. We're working with waste management. However, if there are missed pickups, please always connect with waste management. They record it, and if residents are not phoning waste management, they don't know. Regardless of how helpful it is, at least it's recorded on their side, so it's tracked and it will show up in the stats that there was a missed pickup. However, if they are continuing to if there's continued unclarity about when a recovery pickup will happen, etc., please call SRD and we can see if because we can sometimes see maybe that there are 10 people calling from the same street, and then we know that there's a big issue at hand. And then we can connect through our channels within waste management to address the issue. So initially, always call waste management, and residents can always call us as well, but initially waste management is the first point of contact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, that is helpful. I got missed twice too. Director Seegers.
Thank you. I just want to give you an update on Seashelt. I know that Seashelt staff are in conversation with the regional district staff. I would say our situation is exactly the same. We still have some people who are being missed, but it has subsided. It's not as bad. And it is, they're attributing it to new drivers. Communication is a challenge. Recently I heard that some people are phoning in and they're on hold for a while and then the call just drops, so they don't even get to the call center. So there's all kinds of issues around that, and that is we're also in compensation with them around compensation to the district of Sechelt for the lack of service. So it's an ongoing challenge.
Thank you. Director Ties.
Yeah, thank you. I think, you know, the lack of service, I think, is one thing. And of course, you know, that the staff shortage is something that's not singular to just waste management, but we're seeing it all across the coast. But it's the communication that I'm most concerned with. I think their way of communicating changes to the public is atrocious. I think they don't do it in a timely manner. They don't. There's no. And when somebody calls in saying they've been missed, they're being told, "Oh no, we cleared that route." That's no way to do customer service. You say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we have new drivers. Do you think can I jot down your address and we'll make sure we'll get you next time, or we'll send somebody or do something." But don't deny that that the garbage wasn't picked up, because it's pretty easy to show proof that the garbage is still there. So I don't know if they can get a tie-in into our app so that they can quickly update what's going on. But they also need to really spruce up their customer service on their call center. And make sure that that if somebody is missed, that it's appropriately dealt with, and denial is not, I repeat, not an option. Yeah, I just want to say that that's happened now at least 4 or 5 times, and several times to the same owner. So it's I don't think that's acceptable, and I think we need to let them know that.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further hands up, as exciting as this topic is. It is now 10:46. I'm going to suggest we take a 9-minute break until 10:55 and then come back. Materials Committee meeting of October the 14th, 2021. We are now up to item 7 on our agenda, the wood waste receiving and processing contract extension.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will take this, in absence of Manager Cooper, I will take this item. This report, the purpose of this report is to request a contract extension to our current contract with Shaded Soils, Shaded Environmental Group for the processing of wood. And the process has now been in place with them for 2 years. The original contract had 2 additional years and then a 3-year period afterwards. The 2 initial years were meant to see if the service worked as predicted, to make any changes to the contract, and it's now in place for 2 years, and we're really happy with how things are moving along, and hence we're proposing to extend the contract with another 3 years for a total contract value of almost $2.5 million. Thank you, and staff are more than able to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Director Seegers.
Thank you. I'm pleased to move the recommendations on page 131.
And I see a seconder. Are there any questions about the contract? I am not seeing any. Last chance. Okay, I'm calling the question. All in favor? That passes. Thank you very much. Next item up, Islands Cleanup Community Check-in Engagement Summary, a very entertaining report. Over to Regional Solid Waste.
And IT, can you let Andrea into the meeting, please? Thank you.
Promoted.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair McMahon. The purpose of this report is to provide a summary of the Islands Cleanup Community Check-in Engagement as requested from the committee at the October 22nd, 2020 board meeting. The Islands Cleanup Program is a series of annual events that provides residential waste disposal and recycling services, and the type of event is based on the island serviced and access. Community engagement was conducted in the form of a questionnaire and promoted throughout the 2021 annual events from July to August. This report provides feedback on the service scope, the number of islands serviced, and the scope of materials accepted in the Islands Cleanup Program. The summary of the engagement is provided in the appendix of the report, and the feedback regarding the inclusion of Hardy and surrounding islands is provided for the board's consideration. The complete engagement summary is provided as a link within the report, as well can be found on the Let's Talk SCRD webpage. Staff are seeking direction from the board regarding the inclusion of Hardy and surrounding islands in the Islands Cleanup Program. Thank you, and staff are happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Good. Thank you. Directors who have islands, do you have questions? I had to discover where Worldcombe Island is because I'd never heard of it. All right. Questions, motions? Director Seegers.
Thank you. On page 136, first full paragraph, it indicates that initial discussions indicate that it would not significantly impact the budget. What does that mean? What is not significant?
It's the contractor expressed, because of the proximity of Hardy and the surrounding islands to Nelson, that it really just came down to any sort of extra disposal cost from the materials. It wasn't something that would highly impact their ability to say it spends hours for the event or that type of thing.
Thank you. I'm looking around for a motion. Director Seegers, you're back again.
I'm back
wait,
again.
Director Lee has raised his hand.
Okay.
No, I'd like Director Seegers to go first.
Well, I was going to move the recommendations as
Oh.
presented.
Well, then I'll second it.
Oh, good. We have a motion and a seconder. Any further discussion? Director Lee, did you have any questions or observations, or?
Yes, thank you. I very much appreciate attending to the Hardy Island. It's hard to tell where Nelson starts and Hardy, because this is just a very narrow path, and the boat has to go that way anyways, so I was quite confused as to why we didn't include them, so I'm happy to see this happening. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Director Pratt.
And I would just echo the same comments. It's, especially if there's no significant increase, that's fantastic. Let's see what it looks like in going forward in budget. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. We're all in favor of a garbage pickup service that actually works. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. That passes. We're moving to the next item. Oh, next page. So, contract award, supply and install pool facility UV light filtration system. And I believe that's over to Ms. Gagnon.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am available to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Do we see any questions? Or, Director Hiltz, he has a question.
Yes, I do have a question. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to, this is a like for like, this is a complete system. This is not just bulbs. This is like a complete replacement of the UV system. Is that my understanding? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. You are correct. The bulbs are actually replaced as part of the annual maintenance. This is a replacement of the system, and the system itself needs to be replaced around every 8 to 10 years. It's sort of no different than your condensers, chillers, and such in the arena.
Thank you. Looking for a motion here, Director Tice.
I'm happy to move the recommendations as listed on page 145.
And do we have a second? I see a seconder. Thank you very much. There are no further hands up, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. That passes. Over to our next item, which is the WASAC very brief minutes. I don't think we have anything from that one. And then we have the PMAC minutes. Any items arising from PMAC minutes? I'm not seeing anything there either. And is there finally any commentary or business arising from the letter, which is Annex J? Director Toth.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually was going to comment on this and say that what they wrote back to us wasn't, I didn't think it was good enough, but now it all seems moot, so never mind. Water under the bridge, so to speak.
All right.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yes. All of our fingers are crossed here for Church Road. So I see no further items on the agenda. So I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Excellent. And are there any questions from the public or questions received by email? Nobody in the gallery? IT, did we have email?
Nope, nothing.
Thank you very much. I think we're good to go. Boy, that was quick for infrastructure.
I'm glad you waited until now to say that. I will see you guys